Analyst and a consultant and expert. He's also a security trainer. We have George Musamali. Karibu sana Bwana George.
Asante sana.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
All right. Just next to him, we have the man of the moment. At the moment, I'm quite sure a number of private security guards are watching this to ensure that he speaks for them, and he does that. He is the National General Secretary for the Kenya National Private Security Workers Union. Karibu sana Bwana Dr. Isaac Andabwa.
Thank you.
Just next to him, we have one of the players in the security sector. We have Diego Ngugi Wilson, who is the Managing Director for County Guards Limited. Diego, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Maybe let me begin with you, Bwana Sekjen. We are looking at the reforms in this sector. Talking about, I remember in one of the protests or demonstrations, you said we've been quiet for so long, paying somebody 7,000, paying somebody 10,000. It makes a lot of sense. And now taking that figure to 30,000 shillings. And let me quote somebody, the KOTU Secretary General, Francis Atuolis, more or less is saying that the 30,000 is not quite tenable. Are we reading from two different scripts?
Yeah, I want to just comment first on the issues of 30,000. We are not talking about the 30,000 in the private security industry alone. You know, we have had agitation in terms of a reform agenda. So reform touches on a number of things. But now the regulator has just begun with the 30,000. Before you come up with that figure, you need to look into various issues like indices like life, the cost of living in Nairobi. And remember, we are talking about Nairobi County, where life is very much expensive. And you know, we have been culturally or traditionally, we have been relying on the Ministry of Labor, on the what you are talking about, the minimum wage, which does not anger well with the cards. For example, the rents, you know, they are paid 15% of the minimum wage, which is like 1,500. And it doesn't make sense when you go to the ground. Like, for example, a Mabati house in Kibera, Kangware, it goes up to Kenya shilling 6,000. So what we are saying, the life in Nairobi, we don't have a minimum facilities. We don't have minimum facilities in Nairobi, like school, like a hospital, and any other maybe transport system whereby they are categorized that are minimum wage people, earners, they must go this line. So, you know, in Nairobi, we live, all of us, that we buy a shop in the same malls, we go to the same hospital, and other services we do just like people of Nairobi. So I think the life, when people talk about the cost of living has gone too high for them, it's worse when it comes to the private security. Because in terms of the same concern that people are talking about, the cost of living has gone high. I want to also tell you something. People are having a fear that the 30,000 cannot be tenable. I want to assure you it is tenable, because I have done a lot of CBS with employers. Even now, as I was leaving to this show, I consulted Fazul Mohammed. The Employers Association, including him, they are saying that they don't have any problem in terms of paying that 30,000. But the problem is the government to stick to the enforcement. The government should not speak into languages. Like you have just mentioned something. You know, people have to accept that traditionally we have been attached to the Ministry of Labor. But since now we have the new act for the private security sector, now we need to play our role independently from the Ministry of Labor in terms of the regulations, because the regulations gives the CEO Section 9. Section 9 of the regulations. It gives the CEO mandate of regulating the sector. And when you want to regulate, he first has to regulate the client who consumes our services. Number two, he regulates the employee, and then lastly, the employer. So you cannot do one item at expense or ignorance of the other. So the consumers of our service, they must now realize that the life has gone high, things are changing, and the life is becoming very difficult for the private security industry. So we must again be compensated in terms of our work. You know, there is no employee in the Republic of Kenya who remains on assignment for more than 12 hours, you know, as a single shift. So in terms of our working hours, in terms of allowances, overtime, and so forth, you know, if you do proper calculation, even if it were me.
Did you agree with the private security firms on this figure?
You know that is a government giving the gazette member. But
it should have involved the private security as well.
Obviously, we have had a lot of consultation and discussions all over. We have been always at the Kenya School of Management consulting, all the same thing. And if somebody can table whatever the Fazula has said and what has been there in practice from the Ministry of Labor, you will find the difference is not a big thing. It's around 2,000 or less than 2,000. So there is nothing strange there. But what we have agreed, in Nairobi, a card serving in Nairobi and a card serving in Kakamega or Kisumu, those are two different people, and the demands are different. So what we are saying, in Nairobi, let's have an entry of 30,000. Yes, an entry of 30,000. But for me, I could have even proposed even more than that, because where I used to work, at the US Embassy, I have a CBA, a very nice CBA with the cards, and they are being paid more than around 4,000.
But you cannot compare Kenya and the United States. And you know very well that some of these companies, they draw their salary from the exchequer. In Kenya, the private security firms do not draw their money from the exchequer or from treasury as well.
My brother, you need to look at the act. The act is putting the private security to the national security structures. You need to look at that structure.
All right.
That's what is there.
Okay.
Therefore, you need to look at again the welfare of that person. We don't just employ somebody on the contract simply because it is not tenable, maybe because it's high. You need to look at the input. Maybe if I can just close that sentiment, let's look at the role. What is the role of the private security in the Republic of Kenya? The role of private security officer in the Republic of Kenya is to complement the national security agents. And I want to tell you today, the 80% of the information of the intelligence of the private security is actually gotten or obtained from the private security, you know. So we need to take, whether it's private or public, security is paramount, you know. Very paramount.
All right, let's hear from the private guards. Maybe the private sector will say something different. Diego, he's talked about, indeed, that was just the minimum wage that they want, especially for guards working here in Nairobi. You own a company that you supply guards to individuals and even companies and corporates. Is the 30,000 shillings tenable?
Thank you again, Ben. And well, as I agree with my friend Isaac on a number of things, including the life has really become expensive. The 30,000 is not timely. It's not actually smart. In terms of the timings, in terms of the economy of Kenya is still bleeding. And as you asked him, none of us was really consultant on the issue of the 30,000. A constable today in Kenya Police Service earns much less than 30,000. Much less than 30,000. This is a person that is employed by the government, earns from the government, carries a gun, and still is earning less than 30,000. And I will surprise you, Ben, that the 30,000 we are talking about here is not actually the 30,000, because we are supposed to pay NSSF for that guard. So we will have to increase 6% of 30,000. Then we will have to pay the housing levy for that guard. So you will have to top up again 1.5% of 30,000. Then the same guard consumes much of resources from the company. One, we will have to make sure that guard before it gets to work is fully uniformed. My friend here, Isaac, because he's in the industry, will tell you that for a guard to get into his working place, only clothing takes about 12,000. We must, by the law, we must insure that guard. So we must take WIBA insurance for the guard. We must have a contractual liability insurance for our clients, where we have taken the guards. Some clients actually have even asking for fidelity. And you'll find, putting all these expenses together, including the expenses of supervision, there is a guard out there called a felony supervisor. He knows about it. That guard we are not paid by anyone. The company uses the money for the guard that now is having a contract somewhere to pay. the same grant pays for the fuel. The same grant pays for cars, insurances, motorbike insurances, and even the offices, because you cannot run an organization without an office. So I don't think really these expenses were put into consideration before coming up with the 30,000 for the grant. I agree we need to pay our security grants well. That is one area that both of us, we agree. But how well do we start? Because even in government, when they are doing the agreements with the maybe doctors, teachers and all that, they usually have a percentage of increase. Towards that 30,000, where can we start? Can we say we start from 20, after 2 years we go to 22, from there we go to 25, from there we go to this, and then the same thing is supposed to be demographic and segmented in a way that Angandia in Nairobi, as he says, the cost of Nairobi is too high, including the rental expenses. But the same cost, if you go to Busia, you will find maybe rent is much lesser than Nairobi.
Yeah.
So again, we should have been consulted and again come up with a formula that having this formula towards 30,000, this region we can start with this much, this region we can start in this much, and it's all over. Even in marketing, we have something called the price discrimination. You will find a broom band in Lavington, 1 kg, cost different from the same kg in Tharaka where I was born. And it's the same broom band. It's price discrimination based on the consumer.
Yes.
Yeah, because there is a move that we might take and we kill the industry. Thinking that we are helping the industry, we kill it. We cannot have a supermarket that has an annual turnover of 1 million. They need a grant. That supermarket is in Busia. You are telling me that supermarket to pay me 40,000 so that I can pay the grant there 28,000, because according to the Busia should earn around 28,000 per grant. So they need a grant in the day and then probably 2 grants at the night. That supermarket will either close or they will work without a grant. Where are we taking this country in terms of security? Because security grants are the first line security for the nation. Sorry, I'm sure I'm not taking a lot of time. In Garissa University, the first people that died when it was attacked, they were security guards. In Dusit here, the first people that died were security guards. Now, we are losing our own employees in circumstances that the government itself should look at this industry as very important and empower the industry, not to fight the industry, empower the industry. And I'm happy the way we started. Actually, the ideologies of our boss and the PSRIA, Fazul, they are not bad, but they need more consultation and they come up with the concrete agreements.
Very well. Let me hear from George, who is a security analyst, because one thing, other than what we're talking about, the 30,000, which you very well, we can see, we cannot find a middle ground. We are also talking about reforms in the sector. But unfortunately, the figures, the 30,000 shillings, is more or less what is taking up all the conversation around security firms. I would like you to touch on that, because guards will now have their official numbers, badge numbers, just like our cops do have. And of course, the laws have already been gazetted, so it's only the implementation phase. And we know the country, Kenya, we have very good policies and laws, but when it comes to the implementation phase, we always seem to be getting into a crossfire.
Yes, but we are just looking at this one aspect of the whole thing. We are looking at the salary, forgetting that this is a whole industry that has different dynamics. And if I try and look at what is happening right now, I'll draw an analogy of a ship captain. Yeah, the ship has already left the dock. And so many things are happening. Along the way, he realizes there's a problem that needs to be fixed in the ship. We have the sailors who are used to living in a certain way, kind of life. Yeah. We have the pilot who has been steering this ship for all these years, using certain gadgets. And here is a new captain who says, no, we need to put things to order. Trying to build the ship as it is sailing. At the same time, we have other people who are trying to sabotage the whole thing. And this is exactly what we're facing here. All of us need to sit on a table and agree on the way forward. The act is good. It's noble. wanting to regulate an industry that was unregulated before. This led to the sprouting out of small companies. Every other place you go, you'll find somebody wakes up in the morning, he decides now the kind of business I'll do, I'll open a security company. When I open a security company, we look at the pricing. You decide, as he has said, price discrimination. You decide, you say, this is how I'll price my services, and out of these services, I'm going to pay the guard this much, not standard payment. And this is exactly what is ailing the industry. When it comes to issues of welfare of the guards, you will find it doesn't exist in most of these organizations. Guards wake up in the morning, the owners of the company don't care how this person gets to work. This person gets sick, the owner of the company doesn't care. Bottom line for him is the P&L, profit and loss.
Yes.
So basically, this was an unregulated industry. So the noble idea of coming up with this association, this authority, must be impressed by all. But in doing this, we must look at the dynamics of doing business as a security company, because this is a commercial enterprise. It's not a government enterprise. So your existence depends on what the clients will pay and how you will juggle this. Know that I'll have to pay NHIF, I'll have to pay NSSF, I'll have to pay the housing levy, and at the end of the day, because this is an investment for me, there's something I'm getting from it. So when we look at all the players that are coming on board, we have the employers, we have the union, we have the authority, and then we have the client. Unless we have a central point, a central meeting point, then basically this is not going to work. Just like the ship that I've talked about, everybody is pulling in different directions. So we all need to pull towards one direction and agree what is implementable. And I've said we need to relook at that act, because I believe this act was picked from somewhere, brought to Kenya, and then without involving the stakeholders, we've decided to implement. And it's similar to the current quagmire that we are facing with the current constitution, because most of it was borrowed. And I believe also this act, most of it was borrowed from elsewhere. And why are we talking about this? Because the security industry in Kenya is dynamic. Private security industry. Why is it dynamic? Because there was a gap. If you look at the ratio of policemen to the civilians or to members of the public, we've not met the UN ratio. And that is why now we have to bring in private people to supplement the government. But when we are doing this supplementation, how are we going to coordinate between the national security and the private security? And one of the aspects that is really being talked about is the salary. And the salary is not only affecting the guarding sector. The doctors right now are on the streets. Yeah? Here we have the Daktari championing for the rights of his people, which is doing correctly. And if you look very closely, we have this other aspect, which people are not looking at, the cost of doing business in Kenya.
And actually on the same...
What are the consequences? Because already investors are complaining. It's too expensive to do business in Kenya. Apart from electricity, which you're already complaining about, other things that are coming up, the taxes. And now we bring in another aspect of security, which is supposed to be a national government preserve. So we need to look at all this and then reach a central point and agree this is the way forward. Otherwise, we are going to sink the ship.
Still on the reforms, Chris.
Yes, please.
I'm looking at the whole conversation has been centered on the welfare.
Yes.
But still on that act talks about harmonization of the training that the guards undergo. I would like you to touch on that.
Good. First of all, allow me to review a few things. First and foremost, look at regulation. How does regulation, for example, Association of Kenya Insurance, Association of Kenya Architects, how do they regulate themselves? The first thing they look at is the product or the service that they're taking into the market. Is my product or the service I'm taking to the market worth the price that I want to give that? So my thought is here, what we would have done, which is also very noble, like my brother said, and two brothers have said, right, is that we needed, first of all, to develop the baseline of our services, after which then we take it to the market, price it, review performance. If the performance is very good, then go and tell our consumers, guide consumers, you're consuming a service that quality has changed. So what do? We want to reprice this, because what we are bringing you for your consumption is of a much, much higher quality than what you used to consume before. outside of that, I want to say affirmatively, there is no one in the industry who is not pro-regulation, to include myself. We want to be regulated because of where we have come from and the welfare, the kind of welfare that our guards are facing out there. They are under some conditions that are not very conducive. But then, like my brother said, there are industry players, consumers of this service, who have much more financial muscle, who much more, they're from an economy where they appreciate security to a much higher standard than ourselves. If, for example, you look at the security index of Kenya and Israel, just a preview of that, sneak peek preview of that. You would say security is a priority in Israel, whereas in Kenya, it could be rated somewhere middle level or something like that. Let's come to the welfare of our guards. If you look at the industry turnover in this country of ours, per month or an annual, talk about figures, we're talking about 8 billion. That's a big injection into the economy. And the payload that this industry is carrying is about 1.2 million employed by the industry. So what are we saying? We are saying that regulation in this industry is a must. It is important. It's a VVVIP item, which we must adhere to. Then we must carry it along, step by step, to ensure that all of us get to Canaan. We are saying we want 100% transition of every player in this industry to that land where we're able to speak one language as a community. I do not want to see any of a security person in this country going to the streets like our doctors are doing. No. Security is different. And how do we do that? There must be a mechanism that we need to follow holistically. That we are saying everybody's aboard this ship, and this ship, no matter what turbulence it faces in the seas, we can be able to circumvent that as a group and not as individuals, and then labeling others as, no, we don't want to do that. Or we want to.
Let me go back to the General Secretary. Daktari, I'm looking at COVID, during COVID-19. Diego here will bear me witness that a number of guards had to be laid off, just like in all other sectors. Talking about the welfare of the guards, and maybe from 10,000 now to 30,000, don't you think some of your members are going to lose some of their earnings because of this?
You know, my brother, there is no business person who will agree that we have an issue of job loss. Every employer takes that as an excuse. But I want to come back to the issue we are trying to discuss. My friends are just looking for a scapegoat. This act, we need to know when was it actually asserted into being officially an act. It's not yesterday or the year before the year of 2022. It came into being during Uru's leadership. That's 2016. Now, from 2016, we have had, the government has had a lot of participation meetings. Personally, I have attended 3 at Kenya School of Government. But I want to pick on what my brother said. You know, people who like doing business in darkness, they will never accept the light, because they know the light will expose them. If you look at what I wanted us to discuss, 30,000 in terms of Nairobi, that is the issue. It should not be about tenable, because if they don't have money, they don't have their own money. And I want to remind my brother, he doesn't own any money, or he doesn't even own the cards. We are in the service industry, you know. The people who sustain him and the cards is the clients. So if they talk about all-inclusive kind of discussion and consultation, I agree. And I've told the CEO, we need to have that forum, whereby the client should be told, the private security is not like public security. And I want to correct him. The private security is a bit expensive globally, if you compare with the public. 2 weeks ago, I met David Marshall, the KK managing director. He was here in the country. He wanted to get a license to export labor, you know, to Iraq. And when I moved closer and I wanted to know the payment, he talked about 150,000 Kenyan shillings in Iraq. I've also traveled to South Africa, all over the world. You know, the problem here...
Bonasek, if we look at, without comparison, if we look at the real situation on the ground, and in some countries the security sector is very, very robust. Now we are having reforms. These are some of the reforms that some countries did a long time ago. So trying to compare here and some other countries, it's sometimes leaves a bitter taste for some of the.
I just want to correct you.
Yes.
We learn from mistakes, and we learn from others, and we must not live in denial. We must copy from what our neighbors are doing, which is good, for us again to go the same direction. But what I wanted to say, let me leave about the Fazul issue, because they are too much on the regulations. Let me go back to the CS of Labor. Every Labor Day, 1st May, we have always been told about the general wages, minimum wage. And in Kenya, we have 2,500 investors in the private security industry. Now, I want us to really interrogate this 2,500. Leave alone the Fazul's gazettement. Amongst the 2,500 who have complied with the CS Labor general wages minimum wage, there are only foreign investors who have complied. But the rest are either stealing from the government KRA, they're either stealing from NHF and so forth, not remitting, and also stealing from the employee. Because the current basic is 15,000, around the 900. Now, you can do your own survey. How many out of 2,500 they're actually aligned to that general wages? Nobody, about from the foreign. Now, you can look at even here, I've just walked here and I've talked to the cars outside there. The first culprit of the industry is the government itself. Because you cannot give people law that yourself you don't respect and comply. Go to the Ministry of Labor. A company that has been given a contract there does not meet the threshold of minimum wage. The company that KBC has contracted here, in the name of Canon, I'll be frank, it doesn't meet the threshold of even the payslip. Others, they don't give payslips. The Supreme Court, which is a face of the government, justice, the government that is manning there does not comply with the minimum wage. And you know, people want to continue doing business in a colonial way. When they hear about civilization in the industry, they become barriers. You know. So
government is also guilty as well.
That's what they are saying. That's why Fazul has given every client, the consumer of this service, a notice that things are not going to go the normal way. We must be prepared to change. And we have said, even 3,000, I'm saying because I'm been a guard. I've been there for the last 10 or so years in US Embassy. And in fact, this reform agenda has been spearheading even before Fazul came in, you know, because I felt there's a lot of disparity, you know.
All right.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
You can look at the Ministry of Labor in terms of compensation of somebody, a worker who has lost life. It is pathetic. They compensated by 12,000. The other day, you had the cars who were killed in Mumias, you know. The story is dead. You cannot understand. Those cats who left home going for bread to feed their family, they have lost their life. Now he's talking about them. Nothing. We need to have what we call compensation when a cat dies on assignment. We need to have medical, because these people are just human beings. So what you should be telling me and asking my brother, how relevant is that 1,000 in Nairobi? You know, if the house, the Mabati house, which is not two rooms, just one, 10 by 10. I've been there even yesterday. It goes for 6,000. Now from 30, what do you remain with? And you have school fees, you have medical. Even the ILO convention talks about decent work, you know, environment under which somebody works. Right. Now, you can have a lot of myriad of challenges from the uniform, from overtime, it's nowhere. It's also a grind. The other day, Fazul was giving a circular for people to release the what you call the certificate of the academics. When you are employed in a private security, you are officially in detention without trial. You cannot even proceed with the studies because already your certificate has been confiscated legally by the employer.
All right. There's something else that is something that we are going to be looking at, and we wonder why do they have exactly to confiscate the documents of security. And this is something that has been happening for years. Yes. Diego, you have been told that by your regulator that you have to comply. As private security companies, you have to comply. Yes. Now, what that means, if it were my business, of course I have to hike the rates for my clients. So how are you managing this to ensure that there is a balance between your client, you don't lose your client, and you also don't lose your guards? Before
maybe comes in, I'm sorry. You know, in labor, we work with what you call a tripartite arrangement. You know, when it goes to a document like collective bargaining agreement, we have agreed. We have agreed, and the most employers, Fazul has confirmed me, they're saying they're willing to pay. But you know, the problem is the other counties. But here in Nairobi, most of employers have said they are ready to pay. But the challenge was...
Okay, he's one of the private security providers. He will tell us that whether he will, and he's ready because he is here. He can speak for himself. Diego, how are you adjusting to these regulations?
Then I want to say that what PSLI is doing is not banned. They are doing many other good things, including the process of certifying security firms, and of course they are quite doing a number of things. So, but this particular issue of the minimum wage is the issue that requires more consultation going forward. And you've asked me a very good question, and I want to say again, Kenya is an open economy. Open economies, they leave forces of demand and supply to regulate the economy. You don't bulldoze things unless you are very sure, or unless it's a very high valuable commodity, like the way the government is trying to regulate the oil industry. But in the labor industry, the law that we are supposed to abide in, and I'm happy that my senior here has talked about it, is the labor laws. And the labor laws, they have already indicated how much you are supposed to pay, the minimum wage. And of course, it has also some parameters of paying overtime and all other issues. Ben, in Nairobi, as much as he's saying, let's do something in Nairobi we also have different consumers. For example, we have financial institutions. Yeah, say National Bank of Kenya, KCB, we have all those financial institutions. There shouldn't be a category within these salary, whatever, minimum wage. There shouldn't be a way of segmenting these clients. Banks, as he was saying, we can even put a minimum of 40. There is no problem. Those are financial institutions. But look at a supermarket in Githurai. We should also consider the other side,
they are quite
that this person requires the same services, so we can do maybe...
That's a good point.
Yeah, we can do maybe 20. And that is where we really want to have a discussion on, so that we may not think that because we're in Nairobi, everybody in Nairobi can afford 30. And again, I said here before, that this 30 is actually 40. Based on other statutory deductions that we do from the employer side. It's not that is what goes to the employee. And this employee has also has to part with the, of course, payee and the NHIF. But there are quite a number of deductions where we are both contributing. So we go up once, and there are other expenses that I mentioned quite a number of them. So going forward, I think our boss, Fazul, needs to call all the regulated, all the certified security firms. We have a sitting, and we tell him that this is not a bad idea, but I think these are the steps that you can take towards achieving this noble idea. All of us want our guns to earn good money. Then today, if I get a client that is giving me 50K, I will pay my Gandhi 35. All of us, I mean, these are human beings. These are our brothers and sisters. We meet them, and surely we do shopping in the same market. So we are not against the idea of earning good money. We are saying we should have a well-balanced kind of approach where every person is secured in Kenya, even a small business person, and the upper guys who are doing higher businesses. And then we see how we can come up.
George, let me take it from where he's left it. Very valid point. Talking about a bank and maybe a supermarket in one of the local areas here in the country, you will see that indeed they are quite different in terms of even how much money the private companies are given. How do we strike a middle point?
I think this is a matter of, is a subject of discussion between the authority, the service providers, and the client. You need to strike a middle point, because basically if we are talking so much about salaries, we are forgetting that we have other welfare issues that need to be looked into. And also these welfare issues also costs. There is a cost implication on that. And from where I sit, we should categorize these clients and agree on what they need to pay. Yeah? You see, right now, we don't have a standard price for guarding. I'll wake up today, go, register my security company, I decide on how much I'll pay the guard, and I'll also decide on how much I'm going to charge. So there's a lot of undercutting. And I'll give a very specific example. He knows. There was a point around 1997, Securico was also almost closing shop in Kenya. Why? Price wars. Because they insisted on paying what the Ministry of Labor has stipulated and what is in the law. And then other companies were coming in and undercutting them on charges. So basically, they had to adjust to that. They had to look at the market and say, if this is what the market is taking and this is what the market is offering, let us downgrade also so that we can survive these turbulent waters. And that is what they did. Initially, they used to have permanent guards. They decided to come up with what they called standard guards. So a standard guard basically is a casual. And you know where they were deploying these guards? They were repackaged themselves. And they were not deploying these guards to Kawangware or wherever. Prime clients, I won't mention them here, were not willing to pay the amount that is required, the standard amount. So these guys had to repackage. And basically, this is exactly what we are facing in the industry right now. And that is why I said the authority should not only start looking at, focus on the salary, they should focus on now starting from improving everything. Looking at, for example, the training, repackaging and saying, you are a bank, this guard is being trained on this, and basically what you need to pay for the guard is this. And then, once we have agreed from the client's level, the consumer level, now we come down to the employers. We've negotiated, and these institutions are willing to pay this. But don't forget that this is commercial security. And who are our clients? Who are our customers? These are also commercial enterprises. And all of us are looking at the bottom, profits.
Yes.
I have a board, I have a budget, and what Daktari has said about the government is operating within its budget. You draw a budget here and try to tell these people that we are going to pay 50,000 per guard, they'll tell you no, readjust. Austerity measures. So you go, the government will pay 14,000 per guard so that the owner of the company will decide on what to pay the guard. I think that should be the start point. And then we move to other aspects. But when we concentrate so much on saying we should pay, the cost of doing business is going to be so high to some people. And this is why now we are seeing, we have a risk of people getting out, people disinvesting in Kenya, and even investors in the security industry pulling out.
Beefing what George has talked about, and Diego actually started with it, talking about, if we're talking about 30,000 and even an entry level cop is not paid that amount, maybe there should have been more consultation before even we get to the welfare of the guards, before we get to the figures themselves.
Totally support that. And I really love what everybody seated here, to include the kind of questions you're asking on this subject matter. I think we're all equivocally saying one thing here, clearly.
Yes.
That these changes should have been progressive. Not this one here, this one here, this one. We be progressive. For example, take a look at the contracts that every security company has with a client. What are these contract stipulations? Do they fit the working conditions we require for this particular guard? All right? Are there statutory and legal compliances that these contracts are missing? Are there? And if they are there, that becomes point number one for correction, because we are saying this industry has a very huge payload, and we don't want to offload any of this payload along as we go. We want everybody to be a beneficiary of what we are saying. Then we are also saying another thing here, right? That security itself is a very big enabler to business in this country.
Yes.
By creating insecurity, we come to what my brother said, de-investing. People start going out of here. And if they start going out of there, we create insecurity in the country. And if we pile redundancy on our own persons to go into that market where everybody is playing insecurity, then we are saying here, from an economical perspective, then we are killing the business environment of Kenya. We see our president time and again flying out. What does our president go to do out there? To attract more investors. We need to support that presidential activity of going to bring business to Kenya by ourselves also. Having a progressive approach, looking at, for example, operational environment. My brother talked about Iraq and Kenya, 150,000 and things like that. No, that is a very harsh environment. There must be compensation for you working in a harsh environment. And that is what is equated to the amount of money he quoted. Coming back to our country, we are basically saying, and I'm so happy he said itself, that the government itself needs to look at itself inwardly and say, fine, this item being pushed by a working person in our own governance, is it going to be fruitful, or do we need to rework on it so that we carry everybody along? And we are saying, first of all, that is the entry point of failure. And if that is the entry point of failure, we will say, guys, how do we regulate ourselves if you yourself are failing? How do we operate in that kind of environment? On guards' welfare, we are saying, yes, we want guards. We know some of our guards wake up very early in the morning, just for them to be able to get an affordable accommodation, and go work as far as 5 or 6 kilometers. And they walk. That is security to themselves. We want them to get all these welfares accumulated in one package for them to be able to take care of all that. And like he said, security operates on this perspective. Pass over cost to client.
Yes.
Are the clients in that environment where they're able to afford all these welfare packages to these security persons? If that survey says no, then we sit back and look at what do we do now to progressively push this agenda to the end point where everybody gets the benefit of it.
Diego, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I want to say something.
One thing I can comfortably say is that we are all on the welfare of our security guards, because even in advertisements we see somebody riding a bicycle, a rungu, that is the narrative that is there. We need to change that.
That is true, Ben, and I want to again say we should not have a regulation that is bringing more insecurity. There is a way we might approach these things. We create more insecurity than it were. And the government, the way the procurement process does, for these changes to happen, some other things must happen. Because you see, there is a law, in a procurement law, especially in government, that of course they will take the cheapest. When you meet all other criteria, if it's now the pricing, they will take the cheapest. Then that law must be changed. I don't know from whether it's from Parliament or from whichever quarters. It should be changed, and they say, whatever is cheapest, but with a minimum of 45, because if we are spending around 7,000, yes, with a minimum of 45 or 50. That is where now we can now complain that the canon here, and I'm fighting for my colleague who has supplied security here, or other firms in government, the law courts and all those areas. If you quoted, for example, 13,000, and you are the cheapest, how much can you pay Angand? Looking at the expenses that I mentioned here earlier, the maximum you can pay Angand is 9,000. That is the maximum because of operating expenses. So you'll say no.
Yeah, because the company has agreed 13,000.
Yes, and they went through the legal framework of procurement, and they got you. So the government should start, and I'm happy that Dr. Ria has clearly said that the government should start. Yeah, the 30,000 minimum, then government should start. And also the government actually should be out there to help security firms. We are actually, as I said earlier, we are in the front line of this securing our country. I'm winding up. Then government can even subsidize. Now that we don't have many people that can afford this much, then government can give security firms some money, so that at least we can be restarted. Because of these timelines, within 2 months, within 3 months, I mean, it's not possible. It's not logical, Ben. And these are some of the things, there are some abnormalities. You cannot have people getting maybe 15,000 as a minimum, and then overnight, you say 30. There must be a process.
Yeah, and I would like you to respond to that, because at the end of the day, if at all we are going to comply and make sure that we follow the act as stipulated, let's look at government installation. You've given a very practical example of KBC. You've given a practical example of the judiciary. All these private security firms, which were given the contract by the government, are not observing the 30,000 shillings.
Yes, my brother, I want to reiterate what you are saying.
Yeah.
All these stories that you are hearing here from these employers, apart from what is said, that you know, the plane has taken off the ground, and you cannot bend the law. You either fix yourself, align with that law, or you punch out. That's the issue. And historically, I'm talking about 61 years since this country attained independence. Nobody has talked about the private security industry. Even they used to call us watchmen. They are happy calling us watchmen because those types of names.
To soldier now.
Yes, not soldier. It's now a private security officer.
Okay.
We are now bringing in civilization.
I'm saying that
and that's what he's saying. Let us not just look at the issue of monetary. You know, in our collective bargaining agreement, we look at the terms and the conditions. And I want to assist my brother. We have offered ourselves. I've also requested for Zul that we need a week in Naivasha to look at the document for the industry. But you know, a law cannot be enacted for a specific people, like the foreigners. So they comply with the law, and Otieno is not complying. The law must cut across, whatever we agree. Now, I want to support what somebody has talked about, the categorization of the industry. In fact, I made a proposal, 2012, to Dr. Nyambari, who was then the Labor Commissioner. And I did what we call a categorization based on the assignment and geographical areas of assignment. And we are going back there, you know. So what I want to request to my brothers here, including employers and whatever, and the consumers, let's have a discussion. But you know, what we are talking here is not what they are saying. We are talking about an entry point salary in Nairobi. Are you getting me? It's not about what they are saying, the minimum wage. You know, there's no, I've told you several times, my brother, we don't have a minimum wage hospital. We don't have a minimum wage transport system in Nairobi. We don't have a minimum wage supermarket where cars go to for minimum wage. We go where Dr. William go to shop, you know. And you, employers, you have been saving a lot of profits and you invest in lectures and the grofers, you know. So why can't you share that profit with ourselves?
All right.
Now as I finish, the problem in this industry, my brother, it began very well. People are used to a particular way of doing things. And they're now fearing that the regulator will expose them, you know. And you know, you can do mathematics. You can do mathematics. People, we are around 1.3 million. And those guys, a few of them have been paying taxes. They have stolen from the government billions of money. Now with the presence of the regulations, now the government is going to save a lot of money. You know, they don't have in a pay slip. They can agree with me. Out of 2,500 employers, I can assure you, I'm on the ground. Less than 50 issues an employee with the pay slip. That is corruption. So what the problem in this industry has been lack of enforcement, number one. Then number two, corruption. Whereby the government speaks in a different voice that this is the basic. And you find they have given my brother here a contract lower than what the government is announcing, you know, through corruption means. Right. So what the regulator is doing should be supported so that he enforces the law for the first time in the industry and everything is going to go on smoothly. Right. What they require from us is time frame. We have agreed, but we are not going to negotiate about the end point because look at the consumer, the worker himself. Mambo transport from home to duty, uniform, you know, and the medical, school fees, and so forth. Therefore, the issue is entry point, Nairobi is 30. But the other counties,
because, yes.
But other counties, we are going to sit down and agree on the way forward. And maybe to finish, on the same item, you know, you cannot be a broadcaster or a media personnel without undergoing a specific training in a specific curriculum. You know, we need to have a private security repackaged, you know, from that watchman thing that I've been calling now. You know, like some of the employers are suffering that phobia of watchman, you know. When you give somebody a name, determines also their salary. Okay. So we are saying we need to have a professional industry and the people should be trained in various categories. Like I was saying, for example, carding in a Nairobi hospital must receive certain kind of education or training as opposed to when you is at commercial institutions. Yes. Now, we cannot allow this tendency of commercial institutions announcing billions of shillings profit, and the guard who is standing at the gate is being paid 10,000. and we appreciate and we clap hands. We cannot
By the way, I totally concur, but let me pose this to George, because whatever he's saying quite resonates, but that is not quite the real picture, because you're telling private security firms, as their union and also as the private security firms regulatory authority, to pay their guards in Nairobi 30,000 shillings, whereas guards at the judiciary, guards at NCPB silos, which are all government entities, are not being paid the same amount that you're asking private companies to pay them.
I think it's all about the budget. You need to have a budget. Even you as a company, you also need work within your budget, because this is not a government enterprise. This is private enterprise. And when you enter this enterprise, you are getting in to trade. You are here for commercial reasons. You want to make money, profits. And when you talk about profits, I need to package my services in such a way that I'll get something out of this. So basically, when we are looking at this, that's why I've said it's very important for us to look at the ripple effects of this. What is it going to do to the whole industry per se? And Dr. is talking about less than 50 companies giving pay slips to their guards. Do you know why? It's a governmental failure. Why has the government failed to provide security? That gap that has been created by the government failure to provide adequate security is what has led to the mushrooming of these small companies. And these companies are there to fill that void that has been created by the government. If the government if the security apparatus of the government were functioning and providing adequate security, then we will not have need for these 2,500 companies. And it will be very easy for the private security regulatory authority to regulate the 50 that are compliant. But if right now you try to regulate these 2,500 and you say you are not operating without having been licensed by the authority, then my friend, we are going to create a crisis. So basically, the start point should not be on salary. It should be progressive. How do you deal with issues of insecurity? How do we improve security services from the government apparatus? And then now we bring in the private players. So when you bring in the private players, we say this is the number that we want. Yeah? This number can be properly regulated. But as it is right now, every other person will wake up in the morning and start his own private security company. And when you start now insisting on saying, pay 30,000 in Nairobi, I live in apartments, whereby probably you're paying 50,000 shillings as rent. And then my landlord will try and pass that cost to me. I look at this cost and say, no, Buana landlord, I cannot afford this, so let me move out. Okay, I move out, he has lost a tenant, and at the same time now, the security company, the landlord will say, no, I don't need your services anymore. Let me go electronic. Convince your people and say, I don't need a physical guard. Kila mtu will have a gate to the key. I'll put CCTV, etc., etc.
Okay.
You get?
Yes.
So we need to look at all this holistically and say now, which way forward? And as I've said, there are companies here that have categories of guards. They call them premium guards. I come to you and tell you, this is the package that I have. Premium will go for this rate. Normal will go for this rate. Standard, this rate. Decide. I want to go to Mombasa, I can use Jumbo Jet, I can use KQ, I can use MASH, or I can even go to these shuttles that are here under bus.
All right.
You get?
So
basically, that is how we need to look at this. And as I've said, I agree with Chris. Let this be progressive. Let us relook at that document, because there are things in that document that cannot be implemented. It was a copy-paste from somewhere, and we said, let's move with it. We want regulations. We want to be regulated, but let us regulate in such a way that it will not kill the industry.
All right. As we wind up, Chris, I'm looking at what people say, that to whom much is given, much is expected. In as much as we do their welfare, we pay them the 30,000 shillings. We do expect more from the other side. We have seen some of kind of the pull and push that is currently there in regards to paying them this amount of money. A lot is expected from the other side of the guards as well.
Yeah, if you go back to the question you asked initially on training, and like we've all said, one way or the other, it would be very good, extremely baseline of our discussion, that every person who comes in the private security industry must have a certain baseline training.
Yes.
Then from there, let's go to specialization areas. We want it to be a bank guard. Initially, we would give all bank guards something equivalent to a tear gas. We call it a chemical mace. And we had to train you on the usage of that chemical mace before we deploy you. We had to do that. So we are saying that if you come to a bank, yes, right, we have this kind of a guard specialized for your area. If you go to a supermarket or a hospital, we say, we have a guard who's very good in hospitality, in the healthcare sector, right? Security, the healthcare environment. But now this is what we are saying, critically what we are saying. In the push of what we are seeing right now, you will find that the field of security has so many options. Very many options. Like my brother said, I would go for e-security and say I don't want static or the human intervention here. I want animal intervention and I want electronic intervention. What does that mean to the guard himself? We are saying this guard will lose his job, and the benefit of the greater good that we were pursuing as an industry, we lose it along the way. Oh. So then how do we pull back ourselves and look at how do we implement all these things that we are saying, right from training to all these other items, without losing anyone in the industry? The first thing, we know that our regulator has the details of every security operator in this country. I would sit down and look at your contract and look at the budget cycle of your client. For example, the government is going to come up with the budget, the next budget in the next fiscal year from the month of July. How do I now come and help you to ensure that your contract reads in the right direction towards what I want as a regulator? I would even engage the government myself and make sure the government knows that because we've repackaged our product, because we've trained our products, because we brought in this new equipment, and because we want to sustain the better policy in the economy, this is what we want to do, all right? Okay. So we are saying, the other thing is that we went a lot to broadcast punitive measures than to broadcast how do we sit together and propel or torpedo ourselves to the next level where we can all comfortably sit back and say, yes, gentlemen and ladies, we have achieved the industry requirement that we are now moving all ahead.
All right.
Just one point.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I will give you 10 seconds to tell us how now, as a private company, are you doing to ensure that you conform to what the organization wants, that is the PRISC and also a COW, the Private Security Union?
Thank you. One, I want to say that our regulator is doing a good job. No one is licensed without meeting the threshold. So, Dr. Isaac, in the industry, we don't have 2,500 licensed farms. We have much less than that. Maybe that is the registered companies, but the ones that have been licensed by PSLI, they are far much less than that. And so we must have met the minimum threshold, including the government statutory deductions for you to be licensed. Then training, yes. Finally, we do remuneration because of the risk levels, and we do the training according to the manuals currently given by the PSRI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Diego Ngoge Wilson, who is the Managing Director for County Guards Limited, one of the private security firms that have been instructed to follow the regulation. All of the security firms in the country have to follow regulations. Just next to him, we have Dr. Isaac Andabwa, who is the Secretary General or the National General Secretary for the Kenya National Private Security Workers Union. Just next to him, we have security expert, analyst, and also trainer, George Musamali. And also just next to him, another security consultant and also expert, Chris Otieno, who are looking at the private security guards and especially on their welfare. Thank you so much for joining us on this first hour. On the second hour, I have Engineer Chris Paswadimpa, who already is in the house. We are putting things into perspective when it comes to the state of the nation. Back in a moment.
I'm here to make a deal with you. Just leave Alonso alone, because I have no plans of divorcing him. I'm willing to wait. I don't need to rush things. No, you don't understand me. No, I'm not going to divorce him.
No wonder my father started looking for someone else.
What are you talking about?
Stop acting like you don't know. With whom have you been cheating on my father? Is it that man they called you here the other day?
Rebecca is not just any other client. You are aware what she did to me, Mario. So what now? Do you want to defend my sister from the man she allied with to destroy my life?
The 2024 Futsal Africa Cup of Nations is here with us. KBC is set to showcase the 7th edition that pits 8 nations, each gunning for the glory from the 11th to 21st of April in Rabat, Morocco. This tournament promises to be spectacle like no other. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is Kenya's most trusted news and entertainment brand. Grow your business, acquire more clients, and reach new, diverse audiences by advertising with us. We connect brands to audiences that matter, driving results for brands and enhancing your current marketing strategies. We have packages for all needs, and no product is too small for us. Contact us today and capitalize on our combined power of radio, TV, and digital platforms. KBC, connecting Kenyans.
He will never leave I alone. I know which people. I know which people.
She wants to destroy my life. Oh, my commanding wife. She wants to destroy my life.
But I'm a patient man and understand. I wanna know what is your plan. Must I wait and for how long? Put an end to this frustration.
Saying to myself I must rise and go and testify. 'Cause man was made to serve God. And together we live forever.
Getting out of this house now!
Whatever you say. But I'll say it again, Mother. I may leave Amparo, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to love her. In fact, quite the opposite. This will only strengthen my love for her.
Forget about that love because it cannot happen. Because it's not allowed. You and my son cannot be together.
Amparo is the only woman I love in this world, Fabiola. I'm not giving her up.
On KBC Channel 1, we are a TV station like no other. Get a taste of the best in entertainment.
Yes, indeed.
Feel the passion.
Will you promise me?
I swear that you will never lose me. I can't get married to you.
I'm sure you knew about it. That's why you're making fun of me.
Experience the drama.
Get out!
Who is the man in this one?
And the laughter.
Hii wigi umevatishwa.
Sile wakati tulikuwa tunapishwa tunapewa mheshimiwa.
Move to the beat.
We are live from Broadcasting House.
And get informed on the latest happenings. KBC Channel 1.
Wow.
We are the full package.
Oh yes.
And Kenya's watching.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello and welcome. Today we're at the City of Champions here in Eldoret, Uasin County. We will not showcase athletics. We will showcase the most inspiring stories from the tech side in Agritech. Take a look.
Official government statistics obtained from the 2019 Kenya National Population Census indicates that the age of the average farmer in Kenya is 60 years. It is these statistics that led innovators to wonder how they could not only rope in young Kenyans into farming, but also contribute positively to Kenya's agriculture sector.
While doing this, stumbled upon a niche of farmers, especially young farmers like ourselves, that have no interest or have no time to be at the farm level. So they engage, they're busy, they're career people and so forth. So our job is to be now their representative at the farm level.
Meet Stephen Mwongela, the managing director at Plus Farm, a homegrown digital farm management platform in Kenya. He says platforms like his began from the constant call for support by farmers at a personal level, which by chance has carved out a unique niche. How then does the technology work to attract new and current farmers?
A farmer can be able to keep the records of everything from land propagation all the way to the market and extract profit and loss accounts, as well as extract activity report. So you can be able to tell all the agrochemicals that you applied, and obviously this will lead to the conversation about traceability and a farmer being able to tell, okay, am I doing business or am I doing something else that's not clear?
Headquartered in Eldoret Town, Uasin Gishu County, the Plus Farms platform is aided by a consistent barrage of real-time data recorded by extension and field officers on the ground, busy monitoring systems as they visit farms in Kenya's food-growing regions. Innovators say it is one of the ways of properly commercializing farms for farmers and minimizing risks.
Say there's Plus Farm on one end, then you have the farm owner on the other end, who is probably in Nairobi or in Helsinki or in London or in Finland or thereabout. And then you have the farm manager, who is at the farm level. So all these people need to be in the same circle of information flow. The app allows us to be able to allow this without necessarily lifting our phones and calling each other.
It's not as agriculture as usual. We see it as an investment. So for any youth, okay, so if they have some money, they have some land, they want to invest in it.
Agriculture is key to Kenya's economy, contributing 33% of the gross domestic product and another 27% of GDP indirectly through linkages with other sectors. This indicating the vital role of technology in energizing the sector. To that end, innovators have a clarion call to stakeholders.
Farmers need to view their farms as enterprises, even register them. Okay, and let professionals run these farms for them, and then there are more links that come.
A call to all the young people in this country to find ways in how they can participate in agriculture, and they do not necessarily need to go to the farm and farm, because whether you're a doctor, a teacher, or whatever you are, you can invest in agriculture through companies like ourselves, and then we will promote those projects you have, those investments you have at home, whether it's at home or other places. And we can create a country that produces sufficiently for itself and for exports.
The Kenyan agricultural sector is set to employ more than 40% of the total population and more than 70% of Kenya's rural people, thanks to digital farming.
You therefore have no excuse to remain at home or at the office saying that you cannot go and tend to your farm, because young technopreneurs are proving to you that technology has come to save you the hustle and bustle of the farm. Alanauko, Tech One.
Welcome back, and many thanks for keeping it Channel 1. Just in case you joined us, this is KBC News Check. On the second hour, we look at the state of the nation, and talking about state of the nation, allow me to read out this gazetted public holiday. That is, it is notified by the general information, for the general information of the public, that in exercise of the powers conferred by Section 2, subsection 1 of the Public Holidays Act, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration declares Wednesday, again Wednesday, the 10th day of April 2024, shall be a public holiday to mark Eid al-Fitr. Signed, by Kithure Kindiki, Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. Eid Mubarak to our Muslim brothers and sisters from wherever you are watching us from. Again, tomorrow has been gazetted as a public holiday to mark that day. Now, on the second hour, we are looking at the state of the nation. A lot has been happening, and it's quite sad that yesterday, travelers were marooned after the bus they were in Wajir was swept away by floods. We are keeping tabs with that report. 8 people died the day before yesterday after the bus rammed into a salt truck in Nakuru. Looking at the transport sector and the issues that are coming out from that, there needs to be some bones breaking, because even the NCCK talked about 3 cabinet secretaries who they talked about they need to up their game or need to step aside, and one of those CSs was Transport CS Kipchumba Murkomen. But we'll be talking about that. Again, we are looking at the doctor strike. We are on the 26th day, my director, if I'm not wrong, we are on the 26th day. But the good thing is that the president did break that silence and said that this is what we have on the table. We do not have any more money to give. The doctors say we will continue. And not only the doctors, the clinical officers and also the lab technicians say, the medics say, we will continue with our strike. Other than that, we are also keeping tabs with what is happening at UN, where there's the Rwanda genocide commemoration. Parliament committees are back, and that is why a number of MPs that we had invited have talked about not gracing this show for today because they have been invited for committees after the 2 weeks recess. And a lot is happening. But away from that, let me introduce my panelists. Beginning from my immediate left, we have Engineer Crispus Wadiba. Engineer is also a principal infrastructure expert and also a leadership and governance expert. Just next to him, we have Alex Kindaki, who is the investment and political analyst as well. Gentlemen, karibun.
Asante sir.
To begin with, what I've shown you some messages where the Waheshimiwas have said that we have been recalled. They are back, and a lot on the entry. They're, 2 weeks ago? They've been away for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes.
Now they are back, and a full entry for them, and especially when we talk about, we saw yesterday there's the vetting for the ambassadors. We have committees running. There's a lot is happening. What should we expect on Parliament entry as it goes back after recess?
I think one of the things that we expect them to really tackle is what the President mentioned yesterday, that there is need to rationalize our budget. We need to resize our expenditure in terms of what we are going to spend in the next budget. Remember, budget had approved a budget of around 4 trillion. And the President has said we need to cut that down by 500 billion.
Yeah.
So definitely that is one of the important things they need to address. I don't know if NADCO is still a priority for them in terms of the bills that they are supposed to prepare for moving forward with a NADCO report. I also believe the issue of doctors should form part of the discussions they will have to discuss, because Mwananchi on the ground is complaining. We are facing a lot of cases. I yesterday had an incident where a young girl was about to deliver, and the delivery could not be done in any of the public hospitals, so they were forced to go to a private hospital, and they had to look for money in a very short time because it was becoming an emergency. So those are some of the challenges ordinary Kenyans are facing out there, and I think members of Parliament must take responsibility to discuss that. In 2 weeks' time, schools will be opening. So also the issue of how much money has been sent to the schools is also an issue, because I believe even the first term capitation money, not all of it was sent. So those are some of the challenges members of Parliament need to tackle, because we cannot avoid them. Schools will reopen, hospitals have to reopen. We have to find a way to deal with the doctors' crisis or the medics' crisis. And also we also have the issue of the fertilizer. The rain have started. How are we going to handle the challenges we are facing of the fake fertilizer? Even if the government is saying there's a small amount of it that was fake, but the fact that there's a perception that this fertilizer is fake, even the good one will not be, many farmers will avoid to go and collect it because they feel it is fake. So we have a public perception issue that needs to be addressed in terms of the issue of the fertilizer. Yes.
Alex, let me give you a bite of it, what we expect, and especially Parliament, because the doctor's strike is something that has been a thorn for the last almost 1 month now. And just yesterday, the Nyeri governor, Mutahi, said that he has stopped the payment of salaries to all the striking doctors. This is not only going to be something that a thorn in the flesh of many doctors, but also exacerbates the situation. Because if you stop my salary, what does that mean? It means I'm more or less like fire.
I think what you should know, there's a lot of there's political goodwill from both sides. I don't think now the president has no excuse for not delivering to the common wananchi. There's no pressure from opposition. Right now what is happening, he has managed to control the parliament and to control all the arms of government. So I think if you look at the doctors, those are professionals. Those are people who can survive with or without the salary. Those are people who can go to those private doctors and be given some jobs they do and they make money. So those are not the people that you can threaten that you are going to withdraw their salary. They'll still earn, they'll still make money. But do you know what is going to happen? The common mwananchi is going to suffer. So whatever these people are going to do, or even the member of parliament and the senator, what they should concentrate on is the common mwananchi, because doctors will survive with or without salary. Those are professional, they can make their money, because by the end of the day, people are still suffering. I heard my colleagues talking about some patients going to private hospitals. So which means it's still the only thing that will happen, the common mwananchi will pay more. So these are the guys who are going to suffer. What we need to do, we need to solve the issue that is affecting the common mwananchi. The president should step up, should work, should concentrate more on the service delivery to the common mwananchi. Thank you.
Engineer, I'm looking at what NCCK last week, they said that they actually singled out 3 cabinet secretaries, health, transport, and agriculture, and they said that if at all the people who have been given the mandate, those are the CSs, if they cannot do their work as Kenyans want, they should step aside. Yesterday we saw the president talk about health, of which he has been quiet. He had been quiet for more than 20 days, more than 3 weeks he has been quiet. And yesterday he broke the silence to say that this is what we have. But looking at these three ministries, NCCK is a very trusted and a body that a lot of Kenyans put faith in. What should be done? And especially in Parliament, because the president said that the CSs will be accountable and will also be going to Parliament to answer questions. But we are seeing some of issues in these 3 ministries.
One of the challenges we need to appreciate as a country, we don't have a culture of accountability. If I am a leader and I feel I'm failing in my job for which I've been given by my appointing authority, what should be the honorable thing to do? In other jurisdictions, you find people step aside. In other jurisdictions, you find the appointing authority will remove them from that office. But in the case of Kenya and maybe largely in Africa, people just hang in there and fight their battle while still in office. Even if it's a corruption issue, people will still remain in office until they are hooded out maybe by the judiciary or arrested, but they still want to remain in office. So we don't have a culture where people will step aside and give room for other people to come and take that space. So I don't expect anybody to resign. And I also don't expect the president to fire anybody, because he seems hell-bent on supporting his men and women on the ground. So what will happen is that there'll be a lot of pronouncements, there'll be a lot of directives, there'll be a lot of promises in terms of policy changes. But in terms of the challenges that we are facing in this administration, we still have a problem where the top and the larger body of the government seems not to be working in tandem. Because you find, why suddenly do we have a lot of road carnage? We had the same drivers last year. We had the same roads last year. What has suddenly changed? Probably at the top there and down here, things are not working together. And I think we need to interrogate how our leadership is working or gelling well with the larger public service? Is there synergy between the public servants and the top leadership there? Is there seems to be somebody who's trying to fight back? Is there a system that is fighting back? So that we understand why all these challenges. Even if you look at this medics strike, they signed a CBA 7 years ago. Why now? Why suddenly now when we are changing from NHIF to SHIF? When we are trying to push universal health coverage? When we are at the advanced stages of making a transformation in terms of the health policy, we need to really ask ourselves, what is the problem? Why suddenly we have fertilizer that is fake? Yet we have always known there are these challenges in the system.
Yeah.
So we need to understand, is it an issue of this government still not having full control in terms of the men and work down here? Is there elements of sabotage? Those are some of the challenges that the president needs to interrogate and understand. Otherwise, we have to agree there are problems in this government and it must be ready to deal with them. When it comes to parliament, they don't have also the strength, as you've heard. He has full control of parliament. So they'll do whatever he says. Nobody can be able to go and try and attempt to impeach a cabinet secretary. In the last administration, they tried. Was Anwar Guru removed? No, he still now remained as a CS and ended up being a vacant. So I don't see any attempts of that kind happening.
And Alex, let me pick from where engineer has talked about, and indeed it makes a lot of sense because we are using the same roads, we are using the same vehicles, we have the same drivers that we had last year. But if you look at the first 3 months, we are almost doing a year in terms of accidents. And you do remember that there's nobody who maybe can, more or less like the health CS said, that there are some people who are trying to sabotage what exactly is happening in the health sector, and talking about cartels and everything. But when you look at talk about transport, it makes a lot of sense what engineer is saying. We're using the same things that we used to last year, but there is a spike in the number of road carnages before we look at politics as well.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with him also. One thing that you should also understand, what the president did, he rewarded his people. And what is happening right now is there are so many people who are professionals. We have so many professional Kenyans who could have been given those opportunities, who could have helped the president to make sure that he fulfilled his manifesto. But unfortunately, the president decided to reward his people who are not professional just because they are politicians. They know how to play politics in those positions. What is happening is that there is nobody who is opposing anything because there's no opposition. You saw what Francis Atwoli is doing. As a KOTU spokesperson, he's trying to convince doctors to go back to work. Look at Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka, who is also one of the leaders of opposition. He's also trying to talk to these people to go back to work. So what is happening, both the government and opposition, they are moving toward the same direction. There's nobody who is ready to listen to doctors. You see, these people are more than willing. If you look at they're more than willing to go back to work, but they want to understand who is going to solve their issues. Those grievances that they're bringing up, how are we going to sort them out so that we go for permanent solution? But if everybody is just pushing them to go back to work, but we are not solving the problem, some of the issues that they are raising, what we need to do, we need to first of all sit down with them, listen to them, because there's nobody who is supporting them. We need to support them. If you go to transport sector, the same thing. All those issues, there's nobody who is opposing anything. We are all, the president has managed to control all the areas. Even the opposition right now, the likes of Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga not being there, there's no strong person who is going to make sure that he fight for the common man. Things are tough. So the only people who can be able to protect this country or the common man right now as we are speaking is the media. The media should come up and speak out the truth. That's the only way. Yes.
And let's switch gears. Last year, ODM made a statement in regards to, of course, the political parties are funded by the Exchequer, saying that the delays in submission of the money to political parties is hurting them. And still on political parties, they were so against some of the people who are earning a salary from Kenyans being part of political parties. Case in point, the chair of KRA being made go-to man
Election,
in
yeah,
the
election
UDA
body.
elections.
Yeah.
I would like you to touch on that.
Well, you know, the kind of opposition we have right now is not the kind of objective opposition we had in the 90s, where the elements of money was not consideration. I mean, if you look at the opposition of the 90s, they were not even funded by government, but they objectively criticized and put the government in check. Today, on one hand, you're saying, government, you should not do this. On the other side, give us the money to do our responsibility. So we don't have that authentic opposition that anybody can rely on. It is all about follow the money. They follow the money, you follow the narrative. So the opposition that the criticism they are presenting today about the chairman of KRA being an election board, before he became the chairman of KRA, he was the boss of UDA. So what has changed? It is the UDA that made him KRA boss. So it has a responsibility to go, as long as it's within the law, or it's not contravening any constitution, to go and manage the UDA elections.
But it's good for optics for Kenyans, because a lot of Kenyans also are quick to notice that this guy was the same person.
If Kenyans were to rely on optics, the entire parliament would not be there, because most of the politicians there, their optics are of the opposite of what the chapter 6 speaks about.
Very true.
So Kenyans are not people about optics, because if they were to rely about optics, and the media was to be very categorical in terms of projecting the optic, the true object, some of these leaders were not elected. Kenya is about interest. So the chairman of KRA was a UDA boss. He is just making sure that the party is safe. That is his responsibility.
Alex, do you share the same sentiments as the engineer here?
Let me tell engineer something. You see, I think for opposition, it's their right to be given the money to run the party. But what the president has done, I want to give you an example of a party like DAP Kenya. If you look at the opposition, there's money that these people were supposed to give to run those parties. DAP was supposed to be given 38 million, but the government only released 13 million. Reason being, if these people are given enough money, they will campaign against the government. So the president is making sure that he's controlling everything. He wants to make sure that these people don't have enough money to fight him back. So what is happening right now, the only challenge that we are having right now, even in political party, you see, even what is happening right now, you have seen ANC is going to fold, it's going to go to UDA.
Yes.
I can tell you, even as we are speaking now, you can see where Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, where he's heading to. What is going to remain in ODM, there are going to be so many rancors between the Luhya and the Luo supremacy. Luhya wants to make sure that we have our own guy like Oparanya to lead ODM, while Luo Nyanza feel that the O in ODM means the comes from their community.
And of course, Pia, we look at Mombasa. The coast people, they want also Joho as well to be the leader as well.
But Joe is a joker. Joe is not as serious. When you're talking about ODM, the number come from Western and Nyanza.
All right, and I have to say this, but some of the sentiments that are here do not necessarily represent those of the corporation. But still on the party politics, some of these parties have just been more or less like swallowed up. Let's look at Ford Kenya. There were some... Actually, the section for UDA said that party should fold up. Then all of a sudden he had change of heart because parties like Ford Kenya had some issues with folding up. Do you believe ANC might end up folding up and joining
Not
UDA?
that might end up.
Yes.
ANC, as we are speaking now, there's no ANC. I come from Western region. I can confirm to you ANC is going to join UDA. Reason being, look at somebody like our kingpin, Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi. If you look at Mudavadi, politically that guy has been struggling, especially our people have not really been supporting him. From the time we had devolution, ANC from Western region has never produced a governor. That is one thing that you should know. At least DAP Kenya is a young party. They have managed to have Natembea. Ford Kenya, they have managed to have a number of, but for those kind of embarrassment, I think they have led to Musalia Mudavadi to decide to join UDA, because each and every time, and even as we are speaking right now, the member of parliament from Sabatia, where Mudavadi come from, is from UDA. But one thing that I can say is that Ruto is a very smart politician. What he's doing for him is killing this other party. He wants to make sure that UDA is going to be the biggest party. But what I can see, if somebody like Mheshimiwa Eugene Wamalwa can stand strong and make sure that 2027 he be on the ballot, I can assure you that the party that is going to be the biggest party in Western region is going to be DAP Kenya. It's a young and a very promising party.
Fold Kenya refused to fold up during, actually, they had... they really didn't like even the sentiments themselves, being told to fold up and join UDA. But there's an issue of DAP Kenya. Are you sure DAP will be able to muscle out Ford Kenya in Western Kenya?
I have worked with Ford Kenya. I've worked with Mheshimiwa Wetangula. He's a very nice and a very principled guy. For him, he don't give a damn. He knows what he wants. He knows what UDA wants. Even the issue that he has with the Natembea, we know where the issues are coming from, because the thing is, the main problem is because of him folding the party, the Ford Kenya. But the biggest beneficiaries here is going to be DAP Kenya. Because if you look at the structure of DAP Kenya and the way they performed, you know, right now as we are speaking is the number 5 in terms of the most powerful parties in this country. DAP Kenya is doing very well. And it has very powerful and very strong politicians. What I can tell you, the biggest beneficiaries from Western region is not going to be UDA. It's going to be DAP Kenya. The only thing, but you see, even that one, I'm 100% sure the president already know that. So the only thing, because he's a very smart politician, he will do something to make sure that he finish DAP Kenya. But as we are speaking, DAP Kenya is the biggest party in Western region.
All right, I'm quite sure a number of people will have a second word on that. But Wathimba, I'm looking at these parties, let's be very honest. When Speaker Wetangula took over, he had to relinquish his position at Ford Kenya, totally. Yeah. That is the law. Yeah. When Musalia took the Prime Cabinet Secretary, he had to relinquish ANC leadership. If at all, our very own Baba makes it to AU, he will have to relinquish his position at ODM. But let's be very honest, these people still pull strings behind the curtains. Don't you believe so? Because in Ford Kenya, I'm quite sure and he's still holding grasp on it. ANC, I'm quite sure Musalia is still having some grasp on it. How do we ensure that if at all we have decided that you are no longer a politician, you want to go to the executive, we don't just leave parties like that and we don't kill parties. Look at Ford Kenya. It has quite a legacy, if you ask me.
What we need to appreciate is that times have changed. Between 1992 and 2002, multi-democracy thrived under Moi. But even Kanu being a minority, it was able to rule. Then came 2002 where NAK Kenya or the Raila said Kibaki Tosha. And that's when we started now seeing single party or one strong party remaining in power for a very long time. So in 2002 we had NAK Kenya getting Kibaki to presidency. 2007 it's PNU. 2013 it was TNA URP. Then 2017 we have Jubilee. And now 2022 we have UDA. But who is the president today? He's a student of Moi politics. This is a man who knows, for me, I have to make sure one party is strong. That is UDA. So for him, he will make sure that UDA becomes a strong party. The same way they had designed Jubilee, but it was frustrated, is what he will want to form today. There will definitely be some resistance here and there. But already, he has already secured one move. By pushing Raila to the AU, he has already made sure that the opposition is very weak. So, as much as internally he may have some resistance here and there, he already has ground to go and mop up some support from the opposition. Because everybody now feels the opposition is weak, it is exposed, government is strong, we can also join government and find space. The likes of ANC, Ford Kenya and their leaders, they are also in their 70s or heading to 70s. How much time do they have to be as strong as Raila Amolo Odinga? If the root of politics will be there for the next 20 or 30 years, Because even if he leaves power after 10 years, his brand of politics will still be influencing the kind of governance we have in the country. So therefore, they have already seen it's better to work with this administration for the long term. We cannot go very far with our parties. They are probably weak. They are not connecting with the common man on the ground. The kind of voter is changing. ANC and Ford Kenya, the kind of politics on the ground maybe has changed, so it's time for the young parties like DAP. So what they say, we'd rather fold our parties, remain in UDA as executive appointees, and we have our opposition. We have our positions in government, rather than being on the ground without anything. We have fought for this country for a long time. It's now for this government, this country to take good care of us. So I think for those parties, we may see them disappearing, but we'll see new parties taking space in where there are gaps in. Where the ODM gap will be, we'll see another party coming in. Where Ford Kenya will disappear, another party will take that space. The challenge maybe with Luhya nation is a Luhya unity. Everybody knows that the Luhya community has never been united. So there will be also people who will take advantage of that disunity that is there to break that vote block so that it doesn't come as one.
Alex, what Engineer is talking about really resonates with a lot of Kenyans, because if you look at the history that he has given us in terms of political parties, we are not strengthening political parties or democracy, more or less like we are killing democracy. Ask me why. DAP Kenya is more or less than 5 years old. We look at some of the oldest parties. We have Ford Kenya, ODM, but the oldest is KANU. Let's go back to South Africa. We have ANC, which is quite a solid party over the years. And that is more or less what we would like here in the country. When somebody gets a position, or let's look at ODM, one of the oldest parties. Yes. It was ODM. It gave rise to ODM Kenya, which now is Wiper, meaning there was a breakaway faction. 2027, we never know. We might have a breakaway faction. And in also UDA is more or less TNA from back in the days, URP from back in the days. Maybe in 2027 we might have another vehicle. That is not making democracy any richer in the country.
I agree with you on that, but let me tell you something. Who are the beneficiaries of this party? That's the most important thing. If you look at UDA, who's the owner of UDA? Definitely the president. And after the president, we are going to have a fight between the deputy president and the prime minister. That is Mheshimiwa Mudavadi.
Why do you say that?
Because you see, those are people who they all have interest to be the next president come 2032. And they want to take, everybody wants to make sure that he takes over the party. So the only way that these people are going to lead, are going to make sure that they control the party UDA, is making sure that each and every one of them is going to make sure that he pull more more politician on his side, more people to support him. Definitely after next year's election, you will see Mudavadi making sure that he get more supporters on his side. Mheshimiwa Rigathi will also try to push to make sure that he get more supporters on his side. So I think what he's saying, I might agree with him. We used to have Jubilee, now we have UDA. On 2032, definitely we'll have another umbrella. We'll have another party. It will not be UDA. Yes.
Then, gentlemen, as we wrap up on the political parties, what do we do to ensure that we keep them as strong and robust as they should be? Because every time you hear a breakaway faction, DAP is more or less a breakaway faction of some people from ANC and some people from ODM and also Ford Kenya as well.
Yes.
As long as we elect people based on them enticing us with money, political parties will become as useless as they come and go. We have not been able to entrench our politics on ideology, where we identify a leader and that leader looks for a party that has a similar ideology to his or hers. Today, leaders say, I want to be a leader, and then they look at their bank account or they look at how much money they have and they say, I will go with this money and I'll get elected. They don't have an ideology. And neither do political parties have any ideology. A lot of what is promised during campaigns is not what is implemented. It's all about money. So as long as we are putting money in front in terms of how we elect leaders, we will not have very strong political parties. We will not have a vibrant democracy. We'll just have a something that looks like democracy. But it's not democracy, because right now we feel we are free as a country. We have the political space to discuss what we want. But it is the money. People with the money are the ones who control us. They are the ones who determine what we are going to discuss. They are the ones who determine how long somebody will be in office. They are the ones who determine what kind of political discourse we have right now, because it is able to drive their commercial interest. Right now, money is everything in this country, and it's what is driving the politics. The day we remove money and start looking at the political interests of our country and how it is able to put our livelihoods better, that's when we'll be able to grow. If you look at advanced countries like America and the UK, Labour Party, Conservative, they have an ideology that people identify with. And when they're in power, you see that government started moving in that direction. The Democrats, the same way. The Republicans. But right now, we don't have any ideology we can say we identify with. So that's the challenge we have to do.
Alex, maybe you can take the last bite on how we strengthen democracy in political parties.
I think the best thing that let the leadership of the party not be handled by politicians, because these are the guys who are messing up everything. Because if you
unfortunately, they are the ones who own the party.
Yeah, the guys who own the party. That is the biggest problem that we are having right now in Kenya. If we can just have two parties in this country, and then we say now, these things should not be led by the politician. Because if you ask me right now, I'm planning to go for governorship of Vihiga, and you ask me which party do you want to run with? You see, we have, if you talk about a party like DAP Kenya, you know DAP Kenya is doing very well in Western region, but people are running to UDA. Reason being, according to them, they feel that if I go to UDA, I'll be given money to campaign. If I go to UDA, they will help me steal votes. You see, those are the kind of mentality. That is the reality. That is the reality. Yes.
I wouldn't want to
No, but that is what is there.
In trouble, and also
no.
I'm
trying to tell you how those aspirants think. Because the moment you join a party like UDA, you already have an upper hand. Because the president will help you to campaign. You will be given resources. There will be some manipulation when it comes to voters and everything. So those are some of the benefits. As you cannot compare an independent candidate with somebody who is running on a party like UDA, because when you are on a strong party, you already have like 30% voters, people that you even don't know. So a party is a very powerful instrument when it comes to politics. So what we need to do, I think the best thing that we can do as a country, we separate these two issues and we make sure that we only strengthen two parties. If we decide we want to have UDA and ODM, even that one will kill this issue about tribalism, because you see, our politics is local. If you look at ODM, is a Nyanza party. If you look at UDA, Kikuyu Kalenjin party. DAP is a Western party. So we have to finish all this.
We need a party that gives us a national.
Yes, that is what we want.
Face. But engineer, away from that, I'm looking at what the president did yesterday, which is commission a 45 billion cement factory in, of all the places, West Pokot. This is a place that has been plagued by war, banditry, insecurity, marginalization, a lot, but it's gonna change the landscape of that place. You are an infrastructure project expert, and we are looking at trying to end some of these things like war and the rampant banditry. There are some hotels now, there are some lodges there, the land has appreciated. I'd like you to touch on that, on how we can use this to tap into the security issues that has been plaguing have been plaguing West Pokot for the last many years.
You know, in many countries and in many jurisdictions, development has been used as a tool to fight insecurity. And the challenge we have right now in terms of the security challenge in the northern Kenya is a cultural one, which has evolved, become a criminal enterprise. Before it was just a culture of stealing goods from here, taking them here. It was a cultural thing. But now it has become a criminal enterprise because people have seen an opportunity to make money. And out of it, they have now made this business so ugly and so brutal that the livelihoods of people in the Northern Rift is at risk. But now somebody has made a bold decision to see the bigger picture in that area, that there is a mineral that is here that we can use to save the country a lot of forex, a lot of resources that we are losing right now because of being an import, heavily in terms of importation. So for me, I want to encourage many investors. Despite the challenges we have in some of these areas, there are a lot of opportunities. Some of these areas are very rich in terms of natural resources. The weather is very good. The land is barely being untapped in terms of the value. So the value is very low. We should be able to we should be encouraged to go and open up some of these northern frontiers so that we stop concentrating our investment between Nairobi and its environs. If we do that, we'll be able to open much of Kenya and grow the economy. Right now, the economy of Nairobi is saturated. The small piece of land that is there is so expensive, and it can only do very, very little in terms of what you can develop there and create so few jobs. But if you go to the northern frontier, for example, there's so much space. You can do so much and create so many opportunities and open that region to many other things and kill this issue of security, which is basically because these people have been left behind in terms of development. They are not aware of what is happening to the rest of the parts of the country. But if you bring development to them, they'll just get awakened and become living like the rest of the country.
Alex, you can also touch on that in terms of security, because West Pokot has been plagued by insecurity for years. Actually, not that one or two regimes, for years. And as engineers talked about, started out as a more or less like community thing. You know, you stole our cattle, we come and steal yours. Now it's a criminal enterprise. And even the president said that yesterday that the Kenya Defense Forces will be back there to rebuild the infrastructure that is there. 45 billion. The country gets about 6 billion every year. So it could have taken West Pokot about almost 10 years to get that amount of investment that was done by them.
I think the good thing that they did, if we can keep those people busy, if we can help them at least be able to understand, to know that, okay, we can make money without fighting, without stealing. That will be the best thing. I agree whatever the president is doing, especially when he's trying to support the business people. Because, you see, the government cannot employ everyone. So when he comes in and he starts supporting investors. But, you see, as also a professional marketer, what the president is doing, whatever he's doing, you can support this business community, but you have to make sure that whatever you are doing benefit more of the wananchi. How are these local people going to benefit? Because you can have a factory there, but by the end of the day, it's not benefiting the people who are around there. How are those people going to make sure that at least 75% of those who are going to be casual laborers are going to come from that community? Because I am 100% sure we might end up having workers coming from other regions. We have to make sure that we support the local there. And this thing has to happen to all counties, not only one county, because if you go to my region like Vihiga, there are so many opportunities. If you go to other regions, I can give you an example of what China has done. If you go to China, what they have done, they control the number of houses that one should have in one city. If the government can come up with a structure and say, now, this is what we are going to do, you cannot have this size of land in one county. This will help for people also to invest in other counties. We have to make sure that we spread our investment. The moment we do that, people will not come and move to the city. People will go to their counties and work from there. There are so many opportunities. If you go to those side of Kakamega, there are so many jobless youth. If you go to my area like Vihiga, you'll find there are so many youth who have gone to school, but they have nothing to do. How are we going to look at Tanzania? What did Tanzania do? Tanzania government, the other thing that they did, they insisted on the chain of distribution. So when this person is setting up a factory, why don't you advise him to insist on, you know, the moment we have all the chain of distribution, the distributor, the wholesaler, what they do, they create more opportunity, because by the time the goods goes to the consumer, it passes through so many channels. The moment you do that, you create more opportunity, and it's also a plus to the manufacturer, because these people who are distributing, they will fund him, they will give him money for that product, and they'll provide the warehouse, they provide this advantage to this person, and by the end of the day, the common mwananchi will be able to get an opportunity, because that is what we want. We have to open up to create more job opportunity to our people. Yes.
And let's wrap it up with the conversation that refuses to go away, the fertilizer one. And engineer, I'm looking at the CES for agriculture, Mythical Nturi, and the information that he has been giving since this saga started, and yesterday at Parliament, what we've heard the president say about it, what we've heard Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua talk about it, it seems that more or less like the CES is on one corner and every other government official is on the other corner, conflicting information, and we're talking about food security.
One of the challenges we have had is that in this fertilizer saga, the ministry seems to be speaking in different directions. That is the PS and the minister himself. And now also the deputy president has weighed in, and also his narrative is still also different from the rest of the crowd. So what we need to do is, as a government, we need to really strengthen the office of the government spokesperson so that we allow that office to be collecting all the information from the government and be able to speak in one voice. So that the government communication is very clear. We need to reduce this confusion. And number two, if there are elements of fake fertilizers, government should own up and say, we have investigated, this is what we have found, this is what we are doing in terms of this issue, so that there is clarity and be able to provide Kenyans with some sense of direction so that they know, even if I go to NCPBD tomorrow, I will not find fake fertilizer. I'll find good fertilizer because the one that is fake, it has been removed. Right now we have a challenge of people getting the perception that everything is fake and they will not even procure the good one, so that we'll end up now we're having the same food insecurity challenge that the saboteurs were trying to arrive at by just putting a small amount of fake fertilizer in the market. They have destroyed the entire consignment because people are now perceiving that there is fake fertilizer everywhere. Yet probably it's just a small section of the distribution chain that has that problem. So government needs to be improve its communication. The officials need to come out and say and speak in one voice and avoid these issues of one saying this and a person did. There's no reason why a PS should say something different from the CS. They all work together. So I don't understand why.
Kindaki, in 20 seconds as we wrap it up, maybe the government should have thought of inclusion of private fertilizer companies in the country where they can be more accountable. A practical example, we have Elgon Kenya, we have a number of also private farms in the country. That would be more accountable as opposed to private individuals who are bringing in some of these fertilizers has been contentious.
One thing that I can assure you is that with the Ruto government, it's not easy for somebody to be playing around with things unless the directive is coming from that big office. Even if you bring in private sector, you will realize that most of these, who owns this private sector that you're talking about, they are the same politician that you are talking about. I think people just need to be a bit ethical so that you know whatever, you see we are Kenyans, whatever you are doing, you just have to do the right thing by the end of the day. Because even if you look at those offices, by the end of the day, I'm 100% sure even some of these CS will not be in the office maybe after next election. Some other people will come and they will be held accountable for all the mistakes that they are making. So I think the only thing is all about ethical. People should just understand their job and they just deliver to Kenya. They do the right thing. Yes.
Thank you so much indeed, gentlemen, for making time and for your insight as well.
Thank you.
Just next to me, we have Engineer Crispas Wadimba, who is an principal infrastructure expert and also a leadership and governance expert and a regular here. Thank you so much. We also have another leadership and a political analyst and investment analyst as well, Alex Kindake. We are looking at the state of the nation. Thank you indeed so much for watching. My name is Njue, and Lucy Mora has been a sign language interpreter for this live broadcast. But as I leave you with the Senate committee, which is meeting Cabinet Secretary for IC and digital economy, that information, communication and digital economy, Honorable Eliud Owalo, and the chairperson of the Council of Governors, that is Madam Anne Waiguru, to deliberate on the state of the ICT sector in the country and the implementation status of ICT in county functions to improve service delivery. With that, Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a blessed afternoon ahead.
The digital superhighway and the creative economy is a standalone thematic area. And it was deemed so because in the wisdom of the authors of that plan, ICT is not just an enabler of all the facets of the Kenya Kwanza plan, but it is also a critical success factor for government moving forward. So in that regard, and informed by our mandate, as a ministry, there are fundamental programs by way of priority that we are expected to implement or execute as follows. One, we are expected to roll out 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable so that those parts of the country that have not been connected get access to reliable and stable internet. In the same vein, a key cog of our digital superhighway is to establish and operationalize a total of 25,000 Wi-Fi hotspots spread evenly all over the country. And in this regard, our priority areas is the markets, the bus stops, institutions of higher learning, and more so those areas where we can leverage on internet for purposes of e-commerce, because that is really the frontier moving forward. The other fundamental program that we are expected to undertake is the establishment and operationalization the digital hubs. We did start, ladies and gentlemen, with the establishment of the digital hubs in the TVETs as a matter of priority because we already had the infrastructure within the TVETs. But moving forward now, working together with honorable members of parliament, we want to set up a total of 1,450 digital hubs spread evenly all over the country. The import of this is that we will be able to establish a digital hub in each and every ward in this country. A total of 1,450 digital hubs. Our primary objective is to do digital skilling for the youth in this space. But our ultimate objective is to ensure that leveraging on technology, having facilitated acquisition of the digital skills, we connect the youth to global technological companies by way of digital jobs. The next frontier, ladies and gentlemen, is the digitalization of government services. In our view, to enhance efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery by government, we no longer need to operate through manual processes. That is why, in earnest, we have embarked on the process of digitalizing government services. There is also the aspect of digital entrepreneurship. How do we promote entrepreneurship within the digital space while leveraging on technology? That is another area of focus. Then finally, all that we are doing, and against recognition of the fact that we have got dynamism in the operational environment in the ICT sector, we need to look at our legal, policy, and regulatory framework so that it is in tandem with developments in the operational environment, so that everything that we are doing is anchored on a sound policy, legal, and regulatory framework. That is what we are expected to undertake within the ICT space overall. On the BT side, again, we have got certain fundamental areas of focus. We want to revitalize the operations of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. We want to revitalize the operations of the Postal Corporation. In the same vein, we want to re-engineer the operations of the Kenya News Agency and the Government Advertising Agency so that they can operate at optimal capacity utilization levels in line with their mandate. Against this background, ladies and gentlemen, let me now espouse, by way of a status update, the journey that we have walked so far. So I'll start with the fiber connectivity. Our target is 100,000 kilometers of fiber. And in this regard, our proposition is that as government, we are going to roll out 52% of that fiber and leave the rest, 48%, to the private sector. As we speak, we have managed over the past 1 year or so to roll out 8,743 kilometers. That number looks reason. When we came into government, we had a challenge of funding for a start. When we unlocked the funding, we faced certain bureaucratic red tapes in the course of procurement, which also made us lose quite a bit of time. But from the time we onboarded the contractors, I believe there were 16 contractors, we have managed to do a total of 8,743 kilometers. That fell short of our annual target. Based on lessons learned over the past 1 year, honorable members, we have decided to rejig the implementation model for the fiber rollout. What we have done is now to leverage on the existing capacity and infrastructure within government so that we fast track the rollout of the fiber. As we speak, we have managed to contract by way of direct procurement the Kenya Power and Lighting Company. Kenya Power has got its electricity transmission lines spread evenly all over the country. And informed by critical thinking, our proposition is that as opposed to digging down the ground to roll out fiber, let us leverage on the existing infrastructure of the Kenya Power and Lighting Company to equally roll out fiber. The net effect is that we are going to have the fiber up there along the existing electricity transmission lines. The net effect is that everywhere where there is a Kenya Power line, we are going to roll out the fiber line. Eventually, what it means, good people, is that if there is last mile connectivity of power to a given household, equally we are capable of having last mile connectivity. Arrangement is feasible for the following reasons. One, Kenya Power has got a critical mass of 300 contractors against the background of the 16 contractors that we were utilizing hitherto. Utilizing that capacity of the contractors within the ambit of Kenya Power procurement framework, as opposed to rolling out their 100,000 kilometers of fiber within a period of 5 years, we are now going to be able to roll out their 100,000 kilometers of fiber within a period of 2 years. So we will meet our targets within a very short period of time. Similarly, we will leverage on the existing infrastructure of Kenya Power as we roll out the fiber to also connect Wi-Fi hotspots. Everywhere where there is a transformer, a Kenya Power transformer, and we roll out the fiber, we should also equally be able to have an internet hotspot. And we are targeting the markets, we are targeting the schools. Through this arrangement, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be able to connect fiber and internet to 100 institutions which have already been identified for this purpose. If that is the case, then it also means that through the connectivity to the 100,000 institutions, overshoot our target of the rollout of the 25,000 Wi-Fi hotspots. And this will stand us in very good state. So within a period of 2 years, for purposes of comfort, ladies and gentlemen, we shall have surpassed our target of rollout of the 100,000 kilometers of fiber. We shall have surpassed our target of rollout of the 25,000 Wi-Fi hotspots, and we are prioritizing those segments of the society that will have greater impact.
Na mtazamaji, ni picha za moja kwa moja kutoka katika kaunti ya Mombasa, na anayezungumza hapo ni waziri wa masuala ya mawasiliano na uchumi wa dijitali Eliud Owalo, ambaye leo hii amekutana na kamati ya masuala ya mawasiliano ya bunge la seneti na vile baraza la magavana, akiangazia tu zile hatua ambazo zimepigwa katika sekta hiyo ya mawasiliano humu nchini. Ni taarifa ambayo tutazidi kuifuatilia na kukupa maelezo baada ya muda usiokuwa mrefu. Lakini kwa sasa mtazamaji, tukielekea kwenye kurunzi mashinani, hebu tuangazie tu baadhi ya taarifa ambazo tumekuandalia. Na mojawapo ni kwamba muungano wa wataalamu wa afya unaojumuisha makundi 19 ya wataalamu wa afya ndio wa hivi punde kujiunga kwenye mgomo unaoendelea kwa madaktari. Hayo yanajiri baada ya mkutano baina ya maafisa wa muungano huo na katibu wa huduma za afya Mary Muthoni kutozaa matunda. Akiongea jijini Nairobi, mwenyekiti wa muungano huo Mohamed Duba amesema wanashinikiza kuajiriwa kwa wanagenzi katika vitengo vyote 15 vya huduma za afya pamoja na wataalamu wa mitambo ya matibabu miongoni mwa matakwa mengine. Muungano huo umetangaza kuwa utaendelea na mgomo huo hadi pale matakwa yao yatakaposhughulikiwa pamoja na yale ya wahudumu wengine wa afya.
Given is like we are being neglected, and we are 19 professional associations today here. We have all cadres that provide essential service, and our members, we are telling you, sitting until our issue is resolved.
The Minister of Health went ahead and posted few cadres to the expense of Kenya Health Professional Societies. So we want to send a strong message to this Ministry of Health, either by the CS and the PS, that our members from Kenya Health Professional Societies, they are continuing with the sitting in, they are not going to work, starting from funeral homes in this country, Nairobi, across the 47 county governments.
Acute shortage of these other cadres. We don't have professionals in the health facilities working. We have acute shortage of morticians. We have acute shortage of biomedical engineers, dental, physio.
Na serikali imetenga fedha za kufadhili miradi ya utafiti katika nyanja za sayansi, teknolojia, uhandisi na hisabati almaarufu STEM ili kuwezesha wanafunzi katika kozi zote kuweza kupata elimu bora. Tukiendelea na taarifa hiyo mtazamaji, ni kwamba wanafunzi wanaosomea masomo hayo ya kisayansi wanataka kuhakikisha kwamba wanafadhiliwa kikamilifu.
Akifungua rasmi makala ya 60 ya mkutano wa kitaifa kuhusu sayansi na uhandisi katika shule ya upili ya wasichana ya Moi jijini Nairobi, Inyangala alisema serikali imeanzisha taasisi zitakazofanikisha masomo ya sayansi, teknolojia, uhandisi na hisabati almaarufu STEM shuleni na kuhakikisha wanafunzi ambao tayari wanasomea masomo hayo wanafadhiliwa kikamilifu.
The government's commitment is demonstrated through the funding of research. Our current research funding is at 0.8% of GDP. We are way ahead of most of our peers in Africa.
Katibu Inyangala aliongeza kuwa uvumbuzi unaotokana na kozi za kisayansi unaweza kupiga jeki uchumi wa taifa hili. Haya ya kijiri, alitoa wito kwa washirika zaidi kujitokeza kufadhili wanafunzi wanaosomea masomo ya kisayansi almaarufu STEM.
Some of these challenges have manifested in the form of climate change, food insecurity, disease, environmental pollution.
We are requesting for visibility so that we'll have a concert, an innovations concert, where His Excellency the President is able to see the innovations that our young scientists are able to showcase.
Na bodi ya kuwatahini wataalamu wa kusimamia masuala ya wafanyikazi imetoa wito kwa taasisi za elimu ya juu kuainisha maagizo ya serikali na mpito wa mtaala wa mpango wa elimu na mafunzo kwa wanafunzi wao. Kaimu afisa mkuu mtendaji wa bodi hiyo Margaret Njue amesema kuwa mabadiliko ya haraka katika ulingo wa biashara yanahitaji kuzingatiwa kwa mikakati mwafaka ya elimu inayoangazia zaidi ustawishaji na vilevile ujuzi ili kustawisha masuala mbalimbali. Mtazamaji, taarifa hiyo kamili ni kwenye mseto wa taarifa magatuzini.
Katika juhudi za kujaribu kuziba pengo katika soko la ajira, taasisi za elimu ya juu zimeshauriwa kuianisha mtaala wao na ule uliopo kwa sasa. Bodi ya kuwataini maafisa wa kushughulikia masuala ya usimamizi wa wafanyakazi imezipa changamoto taasisi hizo kutii maagizo ya serikali kwenye mpito wa mtaala wa elimu na mafunzo CBET, programu za wanafunzi.
We are leaving out for you the other over 400 courses, but for HR the best choice would be CBET, certificate and diploma from HRMPEP for career progression in HR.
Wakati huo huo, polisi katika kaunti ya Samburu wametoa wito kwa wakazi wanaolalamikia ukatili wa polisi kuripoti visa hivyo katika kituo cha polisi. Kamanda wa polisi Samburu, Thomas Ototo, amesema madai ya kudhulumiwa pamoja na uharibifu wa mali ni masuala ambayo hayawezi kuchukuliwa hatua ya kutatuliwa iwapo waathiriwa hawawasilishi malalamishi kwa mujibu wa taratibu za kisheria.
Tunataka kwa dharura serikali isaidia watu kwa sababu hawana sahihi kitu yoyote, wana chakula wala wana malasi, wana kitu kufunikana na watoto wadogo.
Katika kaunti ya Bungoma, wakulima wa miwa wanadai kuwa bei duni za miwa zinasababishwa na hatua ya serikali ya kuagiza sukari kutoka nje ya nchi. Wakulima hao wanadai kwamba kupunguzwa kwa bei ya miwa kutoka shilingi 6,000 hadi shilingi 5,000 kwa tani kumewaathiri vibaya.
I think there was a permission which had been granted up to February. Now they are talking of up to June. And this allows cartels and other people to bring in sugar.
Hatimaye biashara zilitatizwa katika eneo la Kimandura huko Limuru baada ya wakazi waliokuwa na ghadhabu kufunga sehemu ya barabara kuu ya Nairobi kuelekea Nakuru, wakilalamikia kazi duni iliyofanywa na mwanakandarasi katika mifumo ya kupitisha maji katika barabara hiyo. Wakazi hao wanaitaka serikali kuu kuingilia kati na kumshinikiza mwanakandarasi huyo kurekebisha hali hiyo.
Hii maji yote wakati walilete hii maji ikaenda, tumepata huko baka huko chini, wazazi wetu wanajaribu kupanda mashamba zao zinabomolewa. Tukipanda kila kitu kinabomolewa na maji.
Na mtazamaji, tukitoka pale magatuzini sasa tuelekee kwenye taarifa za kimataifa, ambapo waandalizi wa maonyesho ya Canton ya 135 yanayotarajiwa kufanyika hivi karibuni wameweka mikakati ya kuwavutia wateja wengi wa kimataifa. Baadhi ya mikakati hiyo ni urekebishaji wa mifumo ya kulipia bidhaa na huduma za mawasiliano, miongoni mwa mambo mengine. Taarifa kamili ni kwenye makala yetu ya Ifahamu China.
Maonesho haya yatakayoanza tarehe 15 mwezi huu hadi tarehe 5 mwezi Mei yataandaliwa Guangzhou, mji mkuu wa mkoa wa Guangdong kusini mwa China. Kwa mjibu wa naibu waziri wa biashara wa China Wang Shouwen, takriban wateja 93,000 kutoka nchi 215 na maeneo mbalimbali wamemaliza kujiandikisha kwa ajili ya maonesho haya. Kulingana na naibu waziri, serikali ya China imeharakisha mchakato wa kupata visa kwa wateja wa kigeni. Zaidi ya vikundi 270 vya kutoa huduma mbalimbali vimepangwa kwenye mabanda ya maonyesho, viwanja vya ndege, bandarini na kwenye mikahawa. Vikundi hivi vitawafaa wageni wa kimataifa katika kukagua beji za kuingia kwenye mabanda ya maonyesho haya.
90% ya balozi za China zilizo ughaibuni zimekuwa zikipeana visa kwa wageni wanaopanga kuhudhuria maonyesho ya Canton. Visa hizi zimekuwa zikipeanwa siku 4 za kazi kila wiki. Kupitia mikakati iliyowekwa, muda wa kusubiri visa hizi umepunguzwa kutoka saa 1.5 hadi dakika 30. Vile balozi zetu zinapeana beji za kuwaruhusu wateja kuingia katika vibanda vya maonyesho ya Canton. Beji hizi zinapeanwa wakati wowote, kila siku.
Kwa upande wa malipo, mashine za kubadilisha fedha za kigeni na mfumo wa simu wa POS zitawekwa ili kukidhi mahitaji ya wageni wa kimataifa. Jukwaa la utumishi wa umma la tafsiri za lugha mbalimbali vilevile limefunguliwa ili kutoa huduma za utafsiri saa 24 kwa wanunuzi wa ng'ambo. Maonyesho ya Canton yalianzishwa mwaka 1957 na huandaliwa mara 2 kila mwaka. Maonyesho haya ndiyo makubwa zaidi kwa sababu huwaleta pamoja wateja wengi wa kimataifa.
Haya basi mtazamaji, baada ya makala hayo ya Ifahamu China, sasa ningependa tuelekee moja kwa moja hadi katika eneo la South Sea, ambapo leo hii kampuni ya Geothermal inazindua ule mpango wa mwaka 2023 hadi mwaka 2027, na viongozi mbalimbali wako pale, na sasa hivi anayezungumza ni waziri wa kawi Davis Chirchir. Hebu basi tuelekee pale tufuatilie taarifa hiyo. Na mtazamaji, naarifiwa kwamba tutakuwa tunapata taarifa hiyo baada ya muda usiokuwa mrefu, lakini kwa sasa hivi nafika kwenye tamati ya Kurunzi Mashinani, lakini usiondoke, maanake naelekea kwenye upande wa pili wa studio kukuletea kipindi cha Tamrini. Na leo hii mtazamaji, tutakuwa tunazungumza kuhusiana na dhulma za uzazi. Je, unafahamu ya kwamba kunao kina mama ambao wanapokwenda pale hospitalini kujifungua huwa wanapata dhulma mbalimbali? Hivyo basi tutakuwa tunaandaa mazungumzo hayo, na kwenye studio tuko naye Harriet Afandi ambaye ni mtetezi wa haki za kina mama na watoto, na vilevile tuko naye Josephine Mwende ambaye ni mtetezi wa haki za walio na ulemavu, na Deborah Monari ambaye ni muuguzi na vilevile mteteaji wa haki za kibinadamu. Lakini mtazamaji, kabla ya mazungumzo hayo, naarifiwa ya kwamba sasa hivi turejee pale katika eneo la South Sea tumsikize Waziri Davis Chirchir anachosema.
To de-risk our fields and ensure that we are able to leverage the generation of energy for this country on this important resource, so as other countries.
Ili kupata uchungu mtamu kama skiza tune yako, bonyeza *812 504 hash.
Je, wajua kuwa kuna uchungu mtamu? Bwana mmoja kaona kipepeo kichanga kikijikakamua kutoka nje ya shimo la ukuni. Akakitazama kwa huruma mno, akahisi uchungu kwa niaba yacho. Mwisho akaamua kukisaidia.
Kupata uchungu mtamu kama skiza tune, bonyeza *812 504 hash. *812 504 hash.
The 2024 Futsal Africa Cup of Nations is here with us. KBC is set to showcase the 7th edition that pits 8 nations, each gunning for the glory, from the 11th to 21st of April in Rabat, Morocco. This tournament promises to be spectacle like no other. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
I'm here to make a deal with you. Just leave Alonso alone, because I have no plans of divorcing him. I'm willing to wait. I don't need to rush things. No, you don't understand me. No, I'm not going to divorce him.
No wonder my father started looking for someone else.
What are you talking about?
Stop acting like you don't know. With whom have you been cheating on my father? Is it that man that